Indeed, quite important news. This is indeed a statement by Sobjanin in which he says that the economy should not switch to a war footing. And this is read actually as such a veiled statement by a party that doesn't really, doesn't really support the SMO, actually. We know that Sobyanin is not a very active participant in any public events related to the war. And now he is saying that killing the economy, and in fact, he is stating the fact that the economy is actually being killed, right? The economy is being systematically killed. But one must understand that Sobyanin is the person who is, well, one of the favorites, conditionally speaking, in the event of any elite upheavals. This is the candidate whom the system could put forward instead of Putin, and he enjoys significant support. Therefore, this is actually quite a characteristic statement. That is, it goes a little bit beyond the scope. This was a pre-election interview. So right now, TASS first released an interview with Lavrov, who is #1 on the United Russia list. And now they've released an interview with Sobyanin, who is #2 on the United Russia list, like these pre-election presentations. And this statement is quite significant. That is, part of the Russian elite is not really ready, so to speak, for a serious war. So this is the message. This is a very important thing.
And here I would make two clarifications. I also recalled this on air yesterday, and we mentioned it today, but more from an economic perspective. And here, indeed, these words were not just about the economy, but in my view also. And if we were to continue this thought, first of all, is Sobyanin a representative of this opinion, or is he speaking only for himself?
No, of course, he is expressing here, again, a certain part of the elite. And this is a part of the elite that is close, by the way, to what Gref was saying. Yes, who said that it is necessary to strive for the earliest possible end to hostilities. And Sobyanin and Gref, in this case, are allies. They are, in principle, quite aligned. That is actually the reason why I am saying that I am so sorry. So this is a kind of continuation of this discussion, yes, which Gref initiated and which Sobyanin, as it were, continued. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter that Sobyanin is there, that he's Putin's appointee. Everything is clear about how all this is perceived, actually. And Melnichenko, yes, this article, they all go in the same row. This is a kind of discussion that is not yet on the surface, but it is already breaking through.
Well, in that sense, they are all Putin's appointees there, in that sense. So there haven't been any non-appointees left there for 25 years, for 26. And a second clarification. So you think that this is, after all, independent? It's not some kind of, beautiful PR combination. So could it be, is he so independent as the mayor of Moscow that he can make such statements without coordination with Staraya Square?
Well, he can make some statements, of course. He is, conditionally speaking, conditionally independent. So some things that people will read who understand what is happening, he can make such statements, of course. He is not Robespierre, as we remember. Putin said that he is not Robespierre back in the day, but he is actually not a newcomer to politics.
Not a newcomer at all. And if we talk about, how beautifully Khodorkovsky called it with the word rustling in one of his recent interviews, he said that he hears a rustling that has begun in Russia. These are also signs of rustling. And could something end up being more than just rustling?
Well, for now, we I don't know how to put it. If we compare, I don't know, like Ekaterina Schulman likes to give the example that this is like 1986 right now, right? That is, they are still cautiously debating in the communist newspaper whether the right path to communism has been chosen or if it needs to be slightly adjusted. Well, it's still at a stage where and how it will end. But for now, the situation is not exactly critical, right? But it is deteriorating slowly, but the elites see it, the people see it, and that's why articles like Melnichenko's appear. I mean, there haven't actually been that many such signals, right, over the last few years, and now they are coming one after another. This is probably a trend that needs to be noted, that there is indeed more and more talk. Well, plus there are these informal, behind-the-scenes conversations that the Tsar isn't catching mice and so on. They aren't exactly public, but they reach us too. Also some rustling, right?
Well, yes, that's exactly what I wanted to ask. If we continue the analogy with 86, although 86 is already Gorbachev, which is in principle, well, not quite, well, things aren't that bad. Before 86, she's looking at it a bit late. And what about the general secretary then? If all this is happening, obviously they've gone to the elections, they're inflating these elections. He will apparently start traveling around the country again. Mobilization. They are talking more and more often. We see some indirect signs. In this sense, is he losing his grip or is he remaining just as controlling?
There were such assumptions that he is losing his grip because there were indeed statements that were read, and the Z community was also actively discussing, yes, that he doesn't quite understand what is happening at the front, or he is being given some incorrect reports, because all of this does not really correspond to what he is saying. Yes, that there is an offensive on all fronts. There were some things that were considered as him not really keeping the situation under control. And such conversations are certainly circulating. But still, it's too early to say that this is already a collapse. No, it's not at that stage yet. He is still quite in control of the situation. And if there can't be any direct analogies, because of course there was Gorbachev in 1986, there was the Afghan War, of course, but it was still a bit different because the Afghan War cannot be compared in terms of scale. It is clear that the war with Ukraine is much more extensive and much more serious in terms of losses, in terms of the price the country is paying. So comparisons here wouldn't even be very appropriate, although both wars are unclear as to why. The goals aren't explained, yes. And the result in general was also not very good in both cases.
Yes, that is true. And the price for Russia will be completely different. You are right about that too. And tell me, please, about the elections, the so-called electoral events. That term has really stuck, hasn't it? Today, Yulia Navalnaya made her appeal to support Yabloko. What does all of this look like in general? I mean, is this really, since we're drawing historical parallels, some kind of gladiator fight to amuse Caesar? Or is there still some hidden meaning to measure the percentage of anti-war Russians, to replace these deputies who are sitting there now with, to introduce more of a military component like SVO veterans, all sorts of cutthroats? What are the goals of all this other than to amuse? Or is he such a legalist he loves to return everything to the letter of the law? So elections are needed.
Yes, there are certainly some interesting intrigues here because everyone is discussing why, for some reason, Yabloko was registered. So that's why. Well, probably because they need to draw them 1.5% and say that here are 1.5% of anti-war Russians. I think that it was with exactly this concept that Kirienko sold the idea of registering Yabloko to Putin. Well, in general, it's clear that, as it were, all the parties that are on the ballot are approved for one reason or another, but we don't fully understand what game Kirienko himself is playing because he has one ambush regiment there and then a second ambush regiment. So we don't know for sure what kind of outcome he will ultimately draw up based on the election results. We understand that the real rating of United Russia is low. This is even confirmed by official polls. On one hand, technologically, it gains a majority one way or another because there are also single mandate districts. And even if it doesn't, it might not even come in first place, but still get a majority simply due to the single mandate districts. On one hand. But on the other hand, indeed, it seems likely that we will only see the final, definitive outcome of this situation after the official voting results have been fully tallied and released. Therefore, all these movements that are happening, they are of course important. And in any case, the fact that Yabloko was registered is actually a good scenario for those who want to say no to the war because, well, it doesn't matter. One can allow for such the probability of such a scenario where Yabloko for some reason suddenly doesn't make it to the final ballot. Well, they might remove them, yes, that could happen. It's technically easy to do, but one way or another, it's still a good opportunity for those who are anti-war to at least express that.
And just for a minute, although this is a topic for an hour, mobilization. We keep tying it to the so-called elections. You do that too? You also think that it depends on the elections and that he might step up mobilization after the elections?
Well, what definitely depends on the elections here is that there won't be any mobilization before the elections. In that sense, we can be sure. Of course, such events are not held before elections, but whether it will happen after the elections is a question that, as I understand it, is not actually decided. It is being actively discussed. It is clear that there is some preparation. We even see signs of it, and there are expectations within the system related to this. But a lot will depend again on there are still 2 months left. Well, that is conditionally. The elections are on the 18th through 20th of September. Mobilization definitely won't be announced the next day. So at the very least, everything will continue until the beginning of October. It will depend on the situation in the war, first of all, yes. What will be happening by the beginning of October is still a big question because the situation is changing quite rapidly. And the second question, of course, is in what form it will be carried out, if it is carried out at all, because there is always the option to carry it out in a very limited way. That is, conditionally, we can't recruit 300,000 contract soldiers, which is what they are recruiting now, but we will carefully carry out a mobilization of 50,000 people a month, then another 50,000 people in November, and so on. So it could be a light version, right? And then it wouldn't be felt too strongly in society.